Hello friends and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Heather Downey and here we are moving on to our second lesson in our Complete Harp Beginners series. And in today's lesson we are going to be having a look at how to tune your harp. So there's a few things you're going to need for today's lesson. The first is of course your harp, that's very important. You're also going to need your tuning key. This should have come with your harp when you purchased it or you started your rental agreement or however you got your harp. You will have got a tuning key along with your harp. We're going to need that for tuning. And you're also going to need a tuning device. Now you notice I've got my phone in my hand. For my tuning, I actually like to use a tuning app on my phone. And we'll talk about which app I like when we get into our actual tuning. But you can use an app on your phone, you can use an electronic tuner. These often come with a nice little lead and a clip-on microphone which can clip in the back of your harp and helps you to tune if you're in a busy place, very handy. You can also have little tuners that clip on the top and they actually read the vibrations of the harp as opposed to the sound, which is quite fancy. And you even get tuning keys with built-in electronic tuners on them as well. But whatever you're using, you're going to need that in today's lesson. You might even be choosing to use another instrument like a piano to tune along to, and that's fine too. So tuning key, harp, and whatever you're using to help you tune your instrument, and you are all set for our lesson. Now before we move on to actually tuning our harps, it's really useful for us to understand just a little bit of music theory. Now we learned in our first lesson that in music, we have the notes from A through to G. But actually more than just these 7 notes exist in music. I like to use the analogy of water to help us understand this. Take water in its natural state. We have a liquid, but we can heat water up and we change its state, it becomes steam, it becomes a gas. It's still a form of water, but it's changed its state. We can also cool water down until it changes state again. It becomes a solid and it becomes ice. Now we can do the same to our notes in music. Let's take D for example. D in its natural state is known as D natural. If we heat D up, we raise the pitch, make it higher by a semitone, which as we learned in the last lesson, is a half step in music. And it becomes D sharp. We raise it by that semitone or raise it by a half step. We heat it up and it becomes D sharp. We can also take our D natural and cool it down, again by a semitone, and we get D flat. So just like our water, our musical notes have 3 states. Natural, raised by a semitone or a half step, and we become sharp. Lowered by a semitone or a half step, and we have a flat. And this is true for almost all of the notes. Well, it is true for all the notes, in fact. But we also have what's called enharmonics in music. Now, what enharmonic is a note which sounds the same pitch. When we hear it, these 2 different notes, so it's 2 notes that sound the same pitch. When we hear the 2 notes, they're going to sound the same, but they actually have 2 different names. Now, it's really easy to understand this if you actually look at a piano keyboard. I know we're harpists, I know we're not learning the piano here, but because on the piano the notes are laid out in front of you, it's really easy to see these enharmonics clearly. So back to our example of D. D flat is actually enharmonic to C sharp. They're going to sound the same pitch, you're going to hear the same thing, but we have 2 different names for that note. It could be C sharp or it could be D flat. And this is going to become important when we look at actually tuning our harps in just a moment. Now, you might notice looking at the piano keyboard that we have 2 parts in our piano keyboard where there's no black note. And this is where the enharmonics become a little bit more tricky and these sharps and flats also become a bit more tricky. Because in the absence of this black note, in between the E and the F on our keyboard or in music, and in between the B and the C, when we have an E sharp, that is actually an F. When we have an F flat, that is an E. The enharmonic equivalent is an E. When we have a B sharp, the enharmonic equivalent is C. And we have a C flat, the enharmonic equivalent is a B. So watch out for these enharmonics. It is important for you to understand them before we move on to actually tuning the harp. Okay everyone, so we are ready to tune our harps. I've got my harp ready, I've got my tuning key, and I've got my tuning app. Of course, you might be using an electronic tuner, and that's fine. The app that I like to use is called Piano Tuner. It's a free app, and I think it picks up the sound of the harp really well. But any tuner that you feel comfortable with will work, so please go with what works for you. Now, if your harp does not have levers, this stage is very easy because you don't have to worry about all the enharmonics we just spoke about. All your notes are going to be natural. You're going to tune to C major, which means you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G natural. You don't have to worry about any sharps or flats. If you have semitone levers like me, it's a really good idea to tune into E flat or A flat major. Now, without getting too technical about these things, what that means is it gives you a really nice wide variety of keys that you can play in when the time comes. My harp's tuned into E flat major, which means that when I pluck the strings with my levers off, with them not engaged, the notes I actually play are E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, and C. And D. So 3 of my notes are actually flats. And this is where the enharmonics come in, because when I pluck, let's pull the piano tuner up on the screen. When I pluck my E, what you can see shows up on my piano tuner is E flat. But what might show up is D sharp. They're the same note, just with 2 different names. So this is where the enharmonics, understanding them, becomes important. We can tune that E flat to D sharp because they're the same note. So to tune my harp, I take my tuning key, which fits into my tuning pins, which on my harp are on the other side of my harp. So they run along the back of the harp here. They correspond to the strings. The tuning pin goes straight through the harp, and I use my tuning key on these tuning pins to tune. I can make the string tighter and raise the pitch, or I can make the string looser and I can lower the pitch. Now I actually put this F string on just the other day, so I know it's going to be out of tune. It should be an F. It's showing up closer to an E, so I need to raise the pitch. I need to tighten the string. And as I do so, piano tuner moves with me, and we have the F. And now my string is in tune. Now you very quickly realise if you're moving the wrong way. You don't have to worry too much. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. I'm going to go the other way. And if I go a little bit too far, oh, it's getting towards a G now. Let's bring it back to the F. There we go. So you really want to move your tuning key, just very small movements. We don't want to turn too fast. You might break a string. Don't worry if you break a string, it can be replaced. So now I'm going to tune my whole harp. I'll just tune the upper register of my harp. I will say my harp is probably very much in tune because I tune my harp every time I play. I'd recommend tuning your harp every time you play. The more often you tune your harp, the more stable the tuning will become and the quicker your tuning will be. So even though you're maybe tuning it every time you play, you're really just having a quick check. Whereas if you leave it for long times, you're more likely to have to spend time tuning, and your harp will be less stable in its tuning. Also, you want to play with your harp in tune. It will help your ears. For the sake of this though, let's just pop some of these strings purposefully out of tune. There we go. That's a bit of fun. So I'm going to start on middle C. It's nice and in tune. In E major, in E flat major, which I'm in, C is natural. D, nice and in tune, D natural. Now I should have an E flat. It's actually not quite right because it was an E. I want an E flat. So there we go. So I had to loosen the string a little bit, bring the pitch of the string down, and now I've got my E flat. There's our F, nice and in tune. Oops, I've got a G flat here. I actually want a G. A bit tighter. Very close. There we go. Next up's our A. Should be A flat, perfect. I'm going to tighten that just a little. Oh dear, this should be a B flat. Showing up as a B, so I need to lower the pitch. Loosen the string. Bit tighter. Bang on, B flat. Oops, our C should be C. It's showing up as a B. There we go, C. D is good. E flat. Here's my F, which I already did. G, A flat, B flat, C. D, could be a little bit tighter. This is where you know, haha, tuned the wrong string. Does happen. E flat, F, G, and A flat. And there you have it. Now, if you're tuning a pedal harp, you're actually going to tune all your notes to flat. Every single one is going to be tuned to the flat because the pedal, when you push the pedal down, it will move the note to a natural. When you push it down again, it will move the note to a sharp. And so you want all of your notes with the pedals disengaged, tuned to flats. And that's how you tune your harps. I hope this has been really helpful. If you're enjoying this series, then please hit subscribe, follow along, get ready for lesson 3 and get your harps in tune. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please do comment, let us know what key you're tuning your harp into. Do you have levers? Do you not? Are you working on a pedal harp? Share with us what you are working on. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.